This year, I've been working on a podcast project called Coin Trick, which is a podcast for kids. There are 6 episodes, and the 6th one just launched in the past week. In this video, I will take you through some of my projects, show you some of the sound design, Foley, Ambience work that I've done, and you'll see how the project was organized, mixed, and hopefully this will be an interesting look in some of the more advanced types of podcasts that you can create. This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community for creatives with thousands of classes on art, graphic design, productivity, music, and more. When I want to learn something new, Skillshare is one of the first places I look. So many classes for beginners, intermediate, and advanced on pretty much every topic you can think of in the category of film and video. I see here there's a new class on Introduction to Production Sound for Film. That seems really great. This YouTube Success Script, Shoot, and Edit with MKBHD is a really excellent behind-the-scene look at their production process. Nathaniel Drew's class, Creativity Unleashed, is really excellent. In the music category, you can find guitar lessons, piano lessons, production tips, and classes on pretty much every DAW. If this sounds interesting to you, check out the link in the description. The first 1,000 people to use the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial to Skillshare Premium. You get access to every single class and workshop. You even get offline access so you can watch videos on your iPad. Skillshare has been a great sponsor of the Reaper blog for years now. I'm visiting the site multiple times a week, checking it on my iPad, and really enjoying the content. I love learning. If you do too, check out Skillshare, the link below. So I came onto this project kind of late in the process. They recorded everything. This is a COVID production, so it's like small groups for the voice acting, and the narrator was added on after, done remotely. All the music was done separately, and then I came on to finish and take all of their files and make it make sense. So when I came on, I was actually the second audio engineer. The first one had a medical emergency and then wasn't able to continue with the project. So when I came on, they had rough cuts of the first 2 episodes. The first one we kind of remixed fully. And then the second one, I basically had a stereo rough mix. We added in the music, we added in group dialogue effects, and then just kind of filled in missing sounds for the rest of the scenes. Episodes 3 to 6, I was doing all of the sound design, ambience, Foley work, all the dialogue editing. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of places in there where I could kind of flex some creative muscles. So here's the session, and the first couple tracks in the session, the first 7 are music tracks. Then I've got a couple tracks for the narration. We'll come back to why there's 2 tracks later on. I've got a folder for my dialogue processing. Every character pretty much has their own track because we have infinite tracks in Reaper. It's just the easiest way to manage for me. There's some special effects tracks here for dialogue, and there's also some group tracks where they recorded multiple people kind of talking, doing background voices at the same time. In this particular scene, there's 2 groups of 2 different groups of kind of bandits or kind of cowboy guys. I've got a folder for Foley effects. In this particular episode, I only needed about 3 tracks. But some of the other ones, I think I had like 7 tracks where there was just that many different layers happening at once. Then we've got ambience, and this whole scene takes place in a cave. Actually, this whole episode is within a cave, so that was kind of an interesting challenge. So let's just hear some of that.
The only 2 to get duped, no siree. There's plenty of us fools in here. Come on out, boys.
One by one, a group of disheveled men shuffle out from the cave's many alcoves.
Welcome to the club, Cassidy. Oh, no.
Is that the giant?
No, it's just Smitey and his crew.
Who's Smitey?
He's a big numbskull is who he is. He and his cohorts get their kicks out of picking on the rest of us.
So it all takes place in a cave. There's a lot of different voices happening in here, and they all have to have a little bit of reverb. So that's where things like having a folder track really makes things convenient because you can apply that reverb to all the tracks at once. I did do it as a send, so I've got a track here called Cave Verb, and let's have a look at what this actual settings are. Valhalla Room with the Dark Chamber reverb mode. I just kind of tweaked this till it sounded right. I didn't go for a preset on this. And then some EQ just to take it kind of out of the dialogue range. That's being fed from the dialogue. I've got the Cave Verb on here, and it's actually automated. So let's look at the automation for this track. Cave Reverb send volume here, and pretty much I kept it at this like -17 level, and then this final scene where it was more intimate, they're in a smaller room within the cave. I just kind of took that out completely just for clarity. But at any point I could have, ducked down this or anything like that. So in the scene for the music, we've got several different tracks. We've got the harmonica. There's some drones coming in and out. There's the whistling sound effects. Got the narrator's track here. I actually kept the narrator out of the dialogue folder for this episode because I didn't want any cave reverb on it. In the previous episodes, I think the narrator ended up being within the dialogue folder. For effects on the dialogue folder, I've got an EQ, cutting out highs and lows, subsonic and ultrasonic stuff that's just not helpful. The T-Rex, white 2A, just compressing a little bit on every voice, kind of.
Two to get duped, no siree. There's plenty of us fools.
Not moving too much, 2 to 3 dB, and then a de-esser. Then individual voices, it kind of depends on the character, but I've got the air compressor on Cassidy's voice.
We? You mean there are others in here?
We weren't the only.
And then she also has some EQ. Most of the other guys in this just have some of the air compressor and re-EQ. So let's have a look at the Foley here. It's not real Foley. It is actually effects, like sound effects library sounds. And so I layered that. I stretched some of them and kind of scattered them so that they're not perfectly in sync or anything like that. So if we look at the EQ in this section, I think it's this one here. This EQ filters out a lot of the highs, so these bandits sound like they're further away and approaching. And I'm using this second EQ for different positions in this. So here's another scene. In this scene, there's more footsteps. There's a flashlight switch, and then there's some whooshes, cloth movement. And I'll solo also the cave ambience, and we'll do it without effects at first. I've actually got a stethoscope chest, slow breathing, underground tunnel with some water. I've got a ambient bunker with water dripping slowly. This is a recording I actually did. And I actually slowed that down a little bit. Water, liquid, drops, dripping, slow, quiet. So this is just water dripping into my sink into a dish of water. And that one's slowed down, and it's just because I needed variations and scattering and stuff. So that's full speed. The other one was slowed down by about half. And in the effects chain, I'm using this JS effect called transience or transience, just to take away some of the sort of really clicky kinds of sounds. Just like the sharp transients of the water drops, I wanted it all to sound kind of, ambient, not really close mic'd or anything like that. It's all just background sounds. That, along with the reverb, helps push it back. And then I compressed it. It probably doesn't even make a difference here, but I did use the compressor on it. EQ to take it away from the vocal range and make some room for the Foley and also the music. And then recomp as a sidechain compressor, so it's being ducked as any of the dialogue is happening. If we look at the routing for this track, it's receiving from the dialogue folder. So if I mute the ambience and the music in a scene, it's missing a lot.
The only two to get duped, no siree. There's plenty of us fools in here. Come on out, boys.
One by one, a group of disheveled men shuffle out.
And I'll bring in the
many
ambience.
alcoves.
Welcome to the club, Cassidy.
And I'll bring in the music.
Oh, no.
This is when Cassidy meets the giant for the first time, and there is music, Foley, and again, a little bit of ambience. The ambience in this scene, because it's a smaller space, I took out a lot of the water dripping just to tighten it up. And this is also the scene where most of the reverb has been taken out.
Ouch!
Oh my.
Why, you little fool, I'm gonna wring your puny neck.
The giant screws up his face again and charges at Cassidy, then stops.
Ow, my head.
The main effect here with the giant is actually repitch. So this is one of the Reaper stock plugins. And I think this is even one of my presets, the voice big guy. So if you have my preset pack, you will have this exact effect. I also have de-esser on here. I did have Valhalla Room. I did end up using it here, but I think in probably the earliest rough cuts of this, I did have a reverb on the giant himself. A compressor and EQ. EQ's hardly doing anything except for in this like snoring scene. A low pass filter is a good way to transition between different areas. So in this case, we're hearing the giant snoring. Cassidy enters the room, and now the voice is not occluded by the door or the walls, and so you hear it more clearly.
Sleeping, yes, but be careful.
Indeed, that motor noise you hear is actually the giant snoring. Cassidy cautiously follows the sound to a small room and peers inside.
So it's kind of a subtle change. It's just, it kind of brightens up a little bit as it goes through this section here. So episode 4, there's actually even more tracks here. There's some interesting ambience in these scenes. Sort of more of a deserty field kind of ambience. This is sort of a whipping sound.
Cornstalks are getting taller and thicker as the pathway twists and turns again and again. Cassidy glances at her compass.
The needle is spinning out of control. We're going in a circle. Whoa!
Whoa, indeed. The cornstalks have taken a huge...
This is actually a situation where I used a subproject. I completely forgot about this. Let's just open this up. In this subproject, I've got a reverse reverb effect for these, the maidens. And I needed that blended in with the original. And these were tuned separately. And I just kind of needed to make a longer drone. So what made the most sense for workflow was to create a subproject for these sounds. And then in the full mix project, I could easily overlap and loop these sounds. For ambience in some of the other scenes, there's wind and waves. And swamp sort of ambience. And then when Cassidy finds the cave for the first time. And some of these sounds, I'm automating the volume right on the item with the take volume envelope, plus using fades. In the last 2 episodes, there were quite a few retakes that needed to be done for the narration. And without getting into the details, had to be done in a different way. So the originals were recorded with a microphone into a Zoom recorder, and then the overdubs had to be done just into a phone. Both of those recordings had issues. There was noise, there was plosives, and matching the two was pretty difficult. So I guess let's listen to some of the overdubs.
Back and closes her eyes. Soon her grip loosens on the coin, which falls to the ground.
So there's kind of a constant hiss. It's a little dull sounding, and there's a little bit of reverb in there that I would want to take out. And then the second recording.
A wiry old man now stares down at Cassidy. He's got stringy hair, a mangy beard, and
actually, it's less noisy, louder overall, just kind of cleaner. So it was tricky to match the two. I used isotope ozone 9. So I used one of the files as the reference, and then I applied it to the overdubs. So this track has the EQ match. Also used de-reverb and spectral denoise. So all of this is processed, and then because this is a child track, it's going into the narrator track. And on the narrator track, more denoising, deplosive, de-essing, EQ, compression, and then another compressor. I don't remember why there was 2 compressors. So now the narrator sounds like this.
She leans back and closes her eyes. Soon her grip loosens on the coin, which falls to the ground.
Which you can still hear some hiss coming in and out, but it's a lot less.
A wiry old man now stares down at Cassidy. He's got stringy hair, a mangy beard, and
That was about the best I could do, and this EQ match made a big difference. So if this project sounds interesting to you, if you want to listen to this with your kids, head over to cointrick.net and download there. All 6 episodes are there now, and it's a lot of fun. And that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Support the Reaper Blog through Patreon. Don't forget to check out the sponsor link down below, and visit reaperblog.net for a lot more tutorials.